Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to Hush No More with Dr. Vanessa, where we talk about those topics that families, friends, and communities have a hard time discussing. And so I'm so grateful for another opportunity to be able to share with you all, have great conversations, to interview some amazing people. And that's what tonight is about. It is about looking at others and how they have changed their lives and what can we learn from them, like some tips that we can learn from them. So I love sharing information about those that are doing some amazing things in our community. So, but before I start, I want to thank CTR Media Network for being our sponsor. They are so amazing. Dr. Tina Ramsey has really done some amazing work in the podcasting arena, the movie arena. And so, y'all check them out, CTR Media Network. You can also see our podcasts, our videos on their platform as well. And everything is family friendly, which I absolutely love. So thank y'all for just another day of supporting Hush No More because it means a lot. Thank you, Dr. Tina. All right, so I got that out of the way. Y'all check out CTR Media Network. But before I bring on our guest tonight, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that supports us. It has been a busy year so far, halfway through the year, and you all have stepped up amazingly. And so, thank you. We're always looking for volunteers. So, if you want to be a volunteer, please reach out to us. You can email us, you can message us. Just let us know that you want to be a volunteer because that's how we make a difference. That's how we change the world. I can't do it by myself. So, I did want to send that plug in. And y'all make sure that y'all share our podcast with others who can get some more information. All right, so let's get into this. I am honored and excited to bring the beautiful Sunshine today as our guest. Welcome, Sunshine.
Hi, Dr. Vanessa. Thanks for having me.
I am so grateful. Tonight we're going to talk about sobriety, addiction, and what that looks like, and just have a different perspective from your foxhole, how you look at sobriety and addiction, and how I look at it. And that's one of my favorite topics because it happens to so many of us. So many
Mhm.
people that have various traumatic experiences deal with addiction. And so I wanted your perspective tonight and to see a little bit more about you, right? So tell us about Sunshine today. What is going on with Sunshine today? Who are you?
Ah, Sunshine today. I lovingly go as the name Sunshine, the pink-haired sober witch. So, who I am today, I'm an individual that is active in the recovery community here in the Metro Detroit as well as nationwide and represented, the belief, the spiritual practice of witchcraft in my recovery. I'm a founder of a nonprofit called the Sovereign Phoenix to help other witches in recovery, step into and stay into, recovery as far as I like to say. And outside of like all of that amazing stuff, I'm also an avid gardener. I love spending time out in my garden. I'm a cat mom, or as my mom likes to say, the crazy cat lady. I have 5 kitty cats, and
Five. Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I do. I have 5 kitty cats, and I am also like a huge fan of any form of creativity. So if I can get my hands on something to make things, yeah, it's just I find a lot of joy in that.
Good. So I love farming by watching it because I'm not good with my hands. We're actually building a safe haven, and there's going to be a wellness farm as part of the safe haven. So I'm learning more about farming and gardening and seeing what that looks like. So, but thank you for starting a nonprofit for just creating space because a lot of times people will talk about it, but they won't do anything about it. So I do want to say
Yeah.
thank you for creating that space to get us here.
Yeah.
And I love it. Can you tell us what's your definition of a witch? Because I want to get that out right now. Like, what
Yeah.
witch?
You know, um, I love that you ask. And, I think I'll first say the notion of a witch that a lot of people have comes from pop culture, right? We go back to when we were younger and we first saw, The Wizard of Oz, and we were introduced to Glinda the Good Witch and, the Wicked Witch of the West. And then you look at all of the witches with the green nose and the wart that we grew up, Halloween and things of that. Um, And, from an archetype perspective, when we think about that pop culture, view, um, the biggest thing that they get in common, that they get right with all of those is that we are an outcast, right? That's something that many of us have chosen to be because of what I truly believe a witch is, right? And that is, I look at my philosophy of a witch as a witch is an individual that believes in and practices the psychic arts, right? So this is, lots of times people are going to think about it in the form of tarot, the form of, pendulum work, divining rods. Like there's a lot of farmers that have actually used divining rods, right? That's
I've
a
seen
form
that.
of, yeah, that's a form of psychic work. But it's also communion with spirit and with God, right? So if we are, talking to God or spirit or whoever we're, connected with, our ancestors, that's psychic work. The second philosophy, pillar of the philosophy is the belief in the practice of magic and ritual. And, magic and ritual is, my intentions and my actions can create change in the world. And so I like to say that a prayer, right, is absolutely a magical act, right? We say a prayer, if we say affirmations, we say mantras, these are magical acts. Now, lots of witches do it much more elaborate than just that, but so do a lot of religions, right? So do a lot of religions. And the third pillar is I do believe that we are to be of service to the world, right? The belief in the practice of being of service to the world. And that can be as simple, or maybe I'm underestimating the simplicity of it, but that can be as being a parent and raising beautiful children,
Mhm.
right? Or as, big and impactful as starting their own nonprofit and literally trying to engage the community in making a difference. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that people have misconceptions of what a witch is. Not think I know it. And so I encourage people that if you have a question or you find yourself judging or assuming, then you should come on and ask. I think it's important to ask a person. And I don't think that people believe that witches serve God.
Mm.
And when you said God, I know that's a shocker for some people, but I think
Mhm.
it's important to at least ask questions, even if you don't believe. It's not like you're gonna hurt somebody. Like you
Yeah.
gonna put a spell on them, right? And so I think that that's important to ask the questions and to understand that. And so thank you for explaining, your belief in your faith, and that might be different for another witch, right? This is the way that you believe and what you believe in. And I love all faiths, right? When I tell you I love studying different religions, I like meeting people from different cultures, and I'm not just boxed in anymore because I think that everybody has something to offer, something to learn from, an idea, a thought. And so I thank you for that. And I thank you for explaining it very simply, what
Mm.
your belief is and the belief of your organization, because that also goes into your organization as well. And so I love when people ask me about why would you have a witch on? And I was like, why wouldn't I? I had that question. And I
Mhm.
clearly said, I think that everybody has a voice. Everybody has a voice. I might not agree with your voice. I might not agree with your philosophy, but you have a voice. And I wanted to be able to create that space where everybody can come together.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. It is, I've gotten it. I've had strangers on the internet call me out. I've had a lot of people automatically, want to associate me to, Satan or the devil, say all sorts of gnarly things. But the truth is, I was raised Catholic. I have a Christian background and upbringing. And, I know of a lot of individuals that are out there that, practice the Catholic or the Christian faith, from a religion perspective, but embrace the philosophies that I just stated of a witch, right? And so their prayer to God when they, pray to Jesus or pray to God, right? And they listen to God or they, hear from the archangels or anything of that nature. These are all aligned with those philosophies, right? It's just that's their faith and the way that they choose to engage in it. So, I love that you're encouraging folks to ask questions. And, there's nothing more beautiful in a human being than someone that has an open mind.
I agree. And just to love people. Like I love if you love me, I love you. Right. Look. Now, if you don't fool with me, I don't fool with you. I'm a mirror, right? But and I'm just gonna tell you the truth. But I give people a chance, and I don't just discount somebody because they think differently than me. And I
Yeah.
think that is important. That's how we change the world of just loving each other, regardless of our faith, our differences, regardless of our race, and just do it about it's about love. And
Yeah.
so, and I see that so much in you of love. So I just wanted you to know that I feel like you just exude that. And I think
Mm.
that's very important. So
Thank you. I appreciate that sentiment. I it's not something that I scream from the rooftops, but it's something that I try to embody and live. So I really appreciate that you feel that and you see that, because there's not a there's not a lot of hate in my, in my life, in my beliefs, in my practices, in any, or, you know, um, it's important to me that people feel respected and honored and seen and loved, for who they are. So I love that. Thank you so much for saying that.
yeah, and I mean it. I really do mean it because I've just experienced that with you, and I think it's pretty cool. So
Mhm.
now let's go back into your past because where
Mm,
you are today is absolutely beautiful. And I wanted to start with that because when we in our childhood, we don't always have the best childhood, right?
mm,
So from you, because sobriety and all our traumatic experiences go hand in hand. I call them cousins, like they're first cousins, no matter what, in my book. And how did you start on this path where you ended up in a place of addiction? How did that start for you?
mhm. You know, I was raised in a household with an alcoholic father. So, I saw that alcohol was a very acceptable part of life, an everyday part of life, that as long as you had all of your work done, it was the way that it's what you did after you were done working. My father would get home from work by 4:30 every day, and after dinner, usually by 5:30, the first drink was poured every night. And if it was a weeknight, it was one or two drinks. And if it was the weekend, it was three, four, five, or six drinks,
Mhm.
And by the time I was probably 8 years old, um, I knew how to make his drink. He had a certain Tupperware tumbler that he used, and there was a line, and you poured the rum to that line, and then you added just the same amount of Coke, right? And so, there was, for anybody that's ever been raised in an alcoholic household, you're going to understand what the trauma is that's associated to that. Like alcoholics have a big control issue a lot of times. Like they want to control the world around them. And that's what my father did. He tried to control myself, my brother, and my mother. And it was just, the household always felt like it was walking on eggshells. And, you know, as a child, one of the things that I've realized in my recovery, as a child, I wasn't allowed to feel. Maybe I should say I wasn't allowed to express my feelings, but the way that translates into a child is you're really not allowed to feel. And so any response that I had as a child around discontent, being upset, being afraid, whatever it was met with anger and sometimes rage. Uh, and I was told not to do it. So my trauma started with a lot of not being able to be who I was, being chastised and punished just for being a human being, a child for that matter.
Yeah.
And it was tough. It was really tough.
We don't always understand it either. We don't understand the
Mhm.
punishment, and I don't think parents always realize that their behavior changes towards their children when they're drinking, right? I don't think that they realize how some individuals could get really mean, and controlling. And when you're a narcissist, that comes out when you're drinking. And then all of the things that you've been through come out when you're drinking. So I can see that. When you were watching your dad, did that make you think that maybe you shouldn't drink? Because I've heard people say that they don't drink because of their father or their mother was a alcoholic.
So here's the interesting thing, because yes, drinking changes us. My dad was more cruel when he wasn't drinking, right? So my dad would get 1 or 2 drinks in him, and he was the nicest, sweetest man in the whole world, right? You know, the party guy came out, the fun guy came out, right? But if he was, like, waiting, like, trying to get something done, like, my dad was a mechanic, and so I spent a lot of time as a child in the garage, and so if he was out tinkering in the garage and had held off on that first beverage, that first drink, the F-bombs dropped, walk around, get him exactly what he wanted at the speed as to which he wanted it, like, yeah, so no, like,
You saw the
when I saw the opposite. When he would have a drink or 2, he relaxed, he chilled out, he became nice. I could ask for that bowl of ice cream and get it, type stuff, or I would get the sweetness and the hugs, but not if he was waiting on that first drink. Mm-mm. No, no. So, it didn't, and, you know, uh, I it's always such a shock for me to say this out loud, but I started drinking at the age of 8. You know, my dad would leave half-finished drinks. Mind you, how I just told you he drank them. It
Mhm.
was usually probably 2 shots in a glass, and so here I was as a child around 8 years old. If I saw a half-finished drink sitting on the end table on the kitchen counter, I would finish it because it made you happy. It made you pleasant, right? And for me as a child, it also made me, I don't, I would never have recognized it as numb, but it woke something up in me that quieted the pain. Yeah.
Hmm. Have you ever explored that? Have you ever explored how alcohol made your pain quiet?
Yeah, so I you have to I have. So I when I got sober, 6.5 years ago, one of the things that I started to realize was that my own psychic gifts, my ability to hear spirit, my ability to empathically pick up on other people just amplified. It became very heightened. And so what I've realized is that as a child, a lot of the pain that I would feel and witness was my mom, my brother, and even my father, as he was drinking, numbing his own pain. And so it became a way, it was like a numbing agent where, like, I no longer heard or received all of that outside input anymore, right? It was just enough to kind of quiet all the other chaos that I had felt.
Wow. And what people don't understand is that a lot of children have spiritual gifts, right?
Mhm.
And they don't understand it. And especially if their parents are not spiritual, right?
Yeah.
So they don't understand. They can't really talk to you about it and tell you what it means, how it feels. So that makes sense that you didn't understand it and you were picking up everybody's energy.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, what do you do with that? And 8 years old is very, very early to start drinking. Did you ever get caught? Like, did your parents ever catch you?
No, because my brother was 5 years older than me. So I'm 8, he's what, 14, 13, 14 going, so they just blamed him all the time. All the time alcohol was missing in the house or finished, he got blamed, not me.
Was he drinking too?
No. No,
Yeah,
no, no,
I
it was
thought it
always
was that. Did he know it was you?
um, I don't know if he knew it was me because he would have friends over in the house
Okay.
too.
So
And so, yeah, yeah. So there became like a bit of an argument of like, was one of his friends the one that was like siphoning off? And for all I know, maybe he did it once and just never. But no, there was probably 3 times that I can think of where he was the one that got in trouble because there was alcohol missing in the house.
but it was you. Yeah.
Yeah, it was me.
I think it's important for parents to know this, right? Because parents will swear that their kids are not gonna drink, not gonna touch the alcohol, that they know better. My kids' running joke is that they wanted me to stop drinking, and so they will pour out the Grey Goose and add water. I was like, "What?" And that's their little joke that they did that to me because they didn't
Hmm.
want me drinking. But kids are very smart. They're very sneaky, and so parents do have a responsibility to put the alcohol up. And you are a great example of that kids will
Oh, I mean, not just my parents. Like, I started to figure out which one of my friends' parents had bars. Oh, I was a horrible influence as a child. I tried to get everyone to drink and do things that they should not be doing. Yeah, like, just horrible. Like, I very often I have memories of convincing my friends to sneak their parents' alcohol with me. Yeah. Mhm.
what? And they did it.
Mhm.
Yeah, see, first of
Mhm.
all, I thought my parents would kill me. That wasn't an option. I'm just gonna tell you, like, I would've been so scared. Now, my sisters, on the other hand, they were more brave, right? I really wasn't brave. And my mama was a minister, so we didn't have alcohol in my house. My father drank, but my mom didn't have alcohol in the house, so I didn't have the access to it until I joined the army. But that's
Mm.
interesting of yeah, yeah. Even if my friends was drinking, that wasn't for me because I was a chicken. I didn't do it. So I'd have been like, "No, girl, you can go and drink by yourself. You don't get me in trouble." Because I thought my mom was gonna kill me. Like my grandmother too. Like I grew up in a family that if I got caught drinking, everybody would punish me. Like
Yeah.
my uncles, my grandma, like it was gonna be a big thing if I got caught drinking. Even though
I
they
gr I grew up in a family where everybody drank,
yeah.
right? Everyone drank, and as, like, when you were a little kid, there was a high probability you were given alcohol, like, as a joke, that yeah, well, everyone has seen the, like, 70s and 80s photos, maybe even the 60s of the kids with the cigarette and the beer can, right? And so that's just what it was. Like, I have some very vague memories of being given alcohol really little too. Very vague memories of being given alcohol very little.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When did you realize that you had a problem over those years? Because you still went to school. You pretty much did
Mhm.
what you had to do, but you was already drinking. When did you realize it was a problem?
Yeah, so again, I want to reiterate what I was mirroring. My father was a workaholic. So if my father was not drinking, he was working or sleeping. Like, that was it, right? And so my father was a workaholic. So what I learned at a very young age was work really hard and then you can drink. So I went years drinking. Um, and looking back, I know I there was a piece of me that knew it was a problem, right? Looking back, there was a piece of me, but it really didn't become what I'll say like a real conscious issue because we kind of celebrate. There's like our culture is like college party town, like let's bong beers, let's do all this crazy wild stuff. It's just kids being kids. It's just college kids being kids. I probably really didn't start to see how much of a problem it was until I was in my early 30s. And I don't even know at that point that it was just my problem that I was seeing because I had a best friend at the time, uh, and she violated my trust pretty horrifically under the excuse of being, messed up, being, drunk and high. And so that started to make me question, like, oh my God, like, what are we doing? Right. But I was still just drinking. I wasn't doing all the drugs too. So, I mean, in case you didn't know, us addicts, we've got like a rung of addiction, and it's different for everyone, but there's always somebody that's worse, and so my addiction is not as bad as theirs, you know?
You'd be like, "Well, I ain't that bad. I don't have a problem."
Yeah, I know,
I didn't want a
so
DUI. Yeah.
oh gosh, yeah, I know. And so, yeah, it was probably my early 30s that I started to feel like there was an issue. But I was, again, such a workaholic, right? I was so good at being a phenomenal, like, producer and citizen, like, paid the bills, paid the taxes, worked hard, um, you know, and I was good at convincing myself that as long as all of the ducks were in a row, all of the checkbox were checked off, then it didn't really matter what I did otherwise, right? Like there was no real there's this like just like this gigantic lack of purpose beyond being a producing citizen, right? Getting the white picket fenced, getting the fancy car, getting the promotion, like this whole list of things that I think we believe makes us successful and yet has no purpose. So yeah.
You couldn't even tell. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
I didn't realize that I was an alcoholic either because I would come home and drink to go to sleep. I'll have a couple of drinks out if I go out and party or whatever. But in my mind, I didn't have a problem because I can go to work, I can control it, right? And being military, a lot of my friends drank a lot too. And I didn't drink as much as they did, right? Or I could handle it. So for
Mhm.
me, I didn't have a problem. I didn't think I had a problem at all until I couldn't stop. That's when I knew
Mhm.
I had a problem. And I ended up in the middle hospital, and another veteran diagnosed me. And I was like, "Oh, maybe I do have a problem." So,
Mhm.
I didn't either. At what point did you say, "I'm gonna stop"? 'Cause I'm very proud of you for getting to this point. What made
Yeah.
this is the day, this is the time? What did that look like for you?
There's probably and I think this is a familiar story. I think there's a couple of these like milestones that you get to the stop piece. But the first part of that was in 2017, the fall of 2017. My father ended up, the same father that I learned this lovely you know, behavior, to mirror, ended up in the hospital on his deathbed. And he was there because he had drank himself to the point that his heart was operating only at 6%. Like his blood was pumping at 6% of its, function. And his liver and his kidneys were shutting down. And, I'd love to say in that moment that that was it. Like I was like, I never put another drink to it. But there was so much stress in that whole situation that I still drank. I probably even drank a little bit more because I took a 2.5 month leave of absence to care for him. And, he's still with us. He has since had a two major surgeries, including a heart transplant. But, we fast forward a year after that, and my cousin was now in the hospital. My cousin was a year younger than me, and he was on his deathbed. But my cousin wasn't as lucky because he didn't go into the hospital early enough to get help like my father did. And so my cousin, from July of 2018 all the way till March 20th, was hospitalized as his body slowly deteriorated and died from alcohol use. And so that was really a big eye opener. Like I knew something had to change at that point. I knew I was now seeing two examples in my life of where I was headed if I continued to drink, you know? So the beginning of 2019 was my very first attempt at trying, like really, really, really evaluating my relationship with alcohol. I committed, they do the dry January, but go big or go home. So I attempted for 90 days without a drink, you know, because they say it takes 90 days to create a new habit.
That's
So I
what
was like,
they say.
yes, I'm gonna try 90 days of no drinking. And so it was this really fascinating experiment. I believe that life is a whole series of experiments, and we learn and we adapt and we change. And so I would go out still, didn't change any of my people, any of my places, or any of my things, right? Just remove the drink. And I would go out and people were like, "Why aren't you drinking?" And I was like, "Why are you drinking?" Like I started to really explore my relationship with alcohol. Like, why are people doing this? Like, why am I doing this? Just this endless curiosity around, consuming. And for whatever reason, and now in retrospect, I will tell you, like, it's wild because 90 days would have put me at the end of March, and I made it somewhere around 80 days, which I only realized this, I think, 2 years ago. This is how, like, unconscious I was, which would have been around the time my cousin passed.
Okay.
This is the strange. I was so unbelievably depressed, so, like, horrifically lost. I
Mhm.
remember saying to my partner at the time that if this is the way depression feels, like, if people literally have to live like this day by day, I can see why they choose to
Right.
take their own lives.
Mhm.
I mean, I never felt that way before in my life. Now, mind you, looking back, like, the coincidence that the time that this happens is at the time of my it just kind of blows my mind, right? But that little, I call him my little drinking demon, popped up, and he said, "Well, you know what will make you feel good?" And I drank again. And I drank for, let's see, April, May, June, July, 4 months straight, probably almost daily at that point,
Mhm.
until I ended up back from I had 10 days off on vacation. And, what a vacation is, it's an excuse for not just night drinking, but day drinking too. And I ended up back from vacation on a Monday, and I walked into the office and I was sweating and clammy. And I realized I was withdrawing from alcohol. So I had a therapist appointment that night, and I walked into her office and I started crying, and I told her, I said, I'm an alcoholic. And I bawled and I admitted it. And, she was like, "What are you going to do?" I was like, "I'm not going to drink. And, I just can't drink. That's it." And I would love to say it ended there.
But you gotta be honest.
But it did not.
Mhm.
I made it about 63 days before my partner and I at the time left Detroit Metro Airport for Costa Rica and to celebrate my 40th birthday. And we got off the plane in Costa Rica, and he walked right into the duty free and picked up a half gallon of my favorite vodka and a half gallon of my favorite tequila. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "It's vacation. What do you think?"
Okay.
And I didn't like I remember this feeling at this time of, like, such confusion and being so lost and, like, just I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to like, just so unbelievably ill prepared, right? Ill prepared. Um, and I made it about 6 hours till after we landed before, I actually picked up a drink. And on my 40th birthday, I turned into what I call, a grade A certified see you next Tuesday, just horrific human being. I did things to him, said things to him that filled me with so much shame to have to face. It was, just yeah, horrific. I was a horrific human being. And that was it. That was the last time. I mean, I continued to drink the rest of the vacation, but by the time we came home, I knew that there was no way I was ever going to stop figuring out how I stopped drinking.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's it. Tiara said she's proud of both of us for our sobriety. And she also said, "We appreciate your transparency and authenticity. Side note,
Mhm.
your then partner sucked."
You know, I side note, yes, I will tell you this man and I parted ways the end of 2021 after I had about I guess that would be at that point 2 years of sobriety. And very unfortunately, addiction took him from us 3 years ago because
He couldn't
he,
stop.
no, he couldn't. And, it still tears me up, but I will tell you, I think about him almost every single day doing this work because I truly believe if he had had something like what me and this community are building to turn to and support, I think he may have had a chance. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's important for us to build community, but I also think we're on our own journey.
Mhm.
Nobody could stop you from drinking or doing drugs. It's your personal decision. Like when people are like, "Won't you just stop?" If they could stop, if we could stop, we would, right? It's not as easy
Mhm.
as to just stop, right? And it's even harder when you have a partner that has an addiction as well, because it's normal, right? We're gonna party, we're gonna have fun, and he probably want to do the party too. It was your birthday, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times people do try to bring us on the other side, but it's our own individual journey. And I tell parents and friends that all the time that you can't make anybody stop,
Mm-mm.
right? So what was the things that you did, to stop, to continue it? Or once you made up your mind, you were good? Once you got back and you said, I don't wanna be this woman anymore."
I will say,
Tiara got a she said, "His death is not in vain through you." That's
yeah, no, I appreciate that a lot, and I do. I've talked to his father a couple of months ago and told him like where I was at, and it was so beautiful to hear him, like his father, be proud, yeah, of me and knowing like what I'm doing because I told him, the same thing, like a lot of a day does not go by that I don't think of him and does he, support his name, as far as the reason of what I do. But, you know, what I did to him was so horrific, and even though he was an addict himself, the one thing that he said to me, and I am very grateful for this, is he's like, "If you want me to stick around," he goes, "you gotta get help." Um, and he said, "I want you to do 90 meetings in 90 days." And so, yeah, he said that, and I was so filled with shame, of what I did was just, yeah, just horrid. And so I was so filled with shame. I was like, I I have to like I don't ever want to do that to someone else or myself ever again. And so if maybe this will work. Like I'd already tried to get sober twice that year on my own, right? And it didn't work. So I was like, you know what? I'm not I'm not an idiot. I know that if I want something to be different, I got to do something different. I know that truth. And so that's how I started. We got back into the States and I messaged a friend of mine that I'd seen talking on Facebook about being sober. And I messaged them. Mind you, this is somebody I hadn't seen since I was 17 years old and hadn't talked to in just as long. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, I'm struggling. I think I have a problem. Can you take me to a meeting?" And they did. and I cried in meetings for probably 30 to 45 days. I went to a meeting every stinking day, right? Every stinking day, crying and just like horrified. And, the worst part to me was like having to relive. Like, if you're new around a 12-step program, you're sitting at the first step table. And so, if the group is large enough to have a first step table, so you're telling the story over and over again, which was really rough. And but it helped, I mean, I still had a lot of mental fogginess. It was still, I was in therapy too, so I believe at that time my therapist and I actually kicked our sessions from every other week up to twice a week for like my first 30 days. So that was a really huge help as well. And between those two things, I would say my bearings kind of got straight underneath me probably around Christmas time, which would have been a good 60 days, right? Um, right, 60 days. Almost towards the end. It was probably about closer to like 70, 75 days about around Christmas time. And you know, I I knew I was approaching the end of 90 days at that point. I was trying to do the whole sponsor thing. They recommend the sponsor, the 12-step program. I had 5 ladies tell me no, um, which is, I guess, very rare and uncommon. I'm a or odd bird in that story, but I had 5 ladies tell me no, like, "No, I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry." And I'm like, "Oh, well, what is this?" So I'm like, so I sat there looking around the tables, and I started to ask myself, right, when you're going to 90 meetings in 90 days, you get to know a whole bunch of people. What do these old timers all have in common?
Mhm.
What do they have in common? Like, how are they racking up 15, 20? There was a gentleman that had 53 years, an old vet, 53 years, and loved him, he's so sweet. And the thing that I realized with every single one of them is they had a strong spiritual faith. Every single one of them, they had a strong. Now, all of them were different. The area that I'm in, Dearborn, Michigan, has a mix of Muslim and Christian, so that we are not talking about just a Christian or so like a lot of times the topic and conversation was kept out, but you could see their strong spiritual faith still within them. Right? When you ask them what they were doing, they're like, "Oh, I was volunteering at church last week. I was doing this, with my, the women's group at church." Like, you still heard it, right? They didn't have to talk about God to show they were acting in God's behalf. So I had to ask myself, what was mine? Right? Like, what really was mine? Um, because if I was going to stay sober longer than these 90 days, if I was going to stay sober and not have to go to a meeting every single day for the rest of my life, I had to know what I was going to do. And so it was at that point that I realized that I had to decide to live a spiritual life. And I had to find out what that meant to me.
For you. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I love that because people don't realize that you can relapse. They were like, "Oh,
Mm,
my family member, my child is now,
mm,
in treatment." I'm like, "Okay." Like, the likelihood of relapse is big. Like, I got 2 white chips, and for y'all that don't know, we pick up a white chip. It's called our surrender chip, because 'cause we're surrendering alcohol and we're surrendering to God, right? So, I have 2 because I had to start over, but before that, I had times that I started and stopped, started and stopped. So, I know the 90-day rule, and that is not true. They need to stop telling people that. Um, but you do have to figure out what is your greater power. Where do you lie? What is that for you? But I've actually met atheists that do it pretty good too. Like they do well, but most of us have faith.
but that's their belief.
But that's their belief. That's what they rely
That's
on.
that even though their belief is the absence of some divinity,
Mhm.
they are still strong in that belief,
And that's what they
right?
rely on. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what they rely on. And I love it. I think it's important that we have that other part to help us with our addiction and what we wanna rely on. Like, now I'm good. I don't even It's not even an issue for me. I could be around alcohol and everything. But that first year, actually the first 2 years was hard for me. I wouldn't even tell people, like I didn't announce it on Facebook until like 2 years. The 2-year anniversary of me being sober is when I announced it because I was embarrassed. I thought that I might fail. I didn't want to tell people, and then they caught me drinking. So I didn't say nothing. The shame that's embarrassed. And that's when you know that you got a problem when that shame starts popping up. I
Yeah.
think when shame hits your alcoholism, oh, that's when you got a problem, right? That you
Mhm.
yourself. Why did you create your community of witches? What made you say, I need to bring sober witches together?
There was quite a journey between the end of that 90 days and even when I did that. Um, I tried to work the steps that whole first year. Um, I did end up finding a sponsor who then quit AA and the church 2.5 months into working with me.
That's big.
Oh, that was really big. I was like, maybe this AA thing is not for me. So I continued to work the steps with my therapist, which is perfectly fine. We would talk about them. I would say what I was on. And so after that year, after racking up 365 days, the longest amount of time I had gone without a drink since I made my first communion, I think, at the age of 7,
Yeah.
right? So we're talking years since I'd made 365 days without a drink. She'd asked me, she goes, like looking back, like, what got you here? Right? What got you here? And I realized that even though I had worked the steps, all of the way that I had worked them was drastically different. It was aligned to what I have now identified as the path of a witch. It was incorporating things that we consider as like shadow work, which is familiar, like similar to an inventory, but it's a bit different. As a different flair, we understand what it means a little bit different, right? You go a bit deeper into it. It's not just what did I do, it's why did I do what I did, right? It incorporated things like talking more to spirit, accepting that I have these psychic gifts, that they are a beautiful gift from God, right? That he gave them to me, and I get to, see them for their beauty and learn how to leverage them. So I realized all of this, and I still was working a corporate job at that particular time. And so the second year I said, well, by golly, if I went down this path, maybe somebody else might like to. So the whole second year in recovery, I wrote how I did it. I spent 12 months. It took me 12 months to write, interestingly enough, all the 12, steps. And I was by my second year, I'm celebrating my second year in recovery, and I'm like, I don't think the book's done. I don't think it's done. And I realize, for anybody that's been around a 12-step program, you very well may have heard of what is referred to as a 13th step. And the number 13 for individuals that believe in like a divine feminine type of energetic, you're going to know that we have 13 moons in a year. We have 13 womanly cycles every year, right? That number 13 becomes very beautiful, powerful, and magical. So I was horrified to hear about this 13th step because it's not a pleasant interpretation of it. And I realized that I needed to figure out what the 13th step was. And so that 13th step ended the writing of the book, and that book is to actually do prayer and or ritual to help rid the world of addiction, right? And I wrote the book, but something I didn't feel like I was at the point that I was ready. And I now know why I didn't give birth to it then. It's because I had to let go of my corporate job, because my calling and what I was meant to do was bigger than something that could be done while I juggled a 40-hour-a-week job. So 2 years ago, I left my corporate job. I thought I was going to, I really thought I was just going to be this professional psychic medium that I had been for, the that 3 years, I guess at that point it was 4 years. I'd been touring and being a professional psychic medium for 4 years. And I was like, well, I'll just get some clients and I'll make it work. And I was just so burnt out at that point. And I remember crying and sitting there and, just telling spirit, like, I don't know, did I do the right thing? I left this job, but I don't know, I don't know. And it was spirit that said, are you ready? And I said, for what? And I heard you're here to help witches in recovery. Yeah. And that's what did it. That's what led me to creating the community. Like I thought the book was this beautiful exercise of me writing down, but it was at that point forward that spirit's like, all right, we're going to dust off the book, we're going to edit the book, and we're going to create a community, and by golly, we're going to start a witches in recovery circle, and we're going to start meeting every week, and there are more of you out there. And it may shock people to hear this, but I haven't pulled the numbers since January, but when I looked in January, we had over 1,000 individuals sign up for those weekly recovery circles since we'd started a year beforehand.
Congratulations. When it comes from God, and no matter what you call God, when it comes from God, it's
Mhm.
gonna work. You sit there like, "What? What? You want me to do what?" So
Mhm.
that's how it was about Hush No More. I was like, "What? Nobody don't have no money for this. Like, what? You want me to do? This is a lot of work, right?" But you just have to take that step. And I think when you take that step, it also creates this space that you have to stay sober. Your mission is so big that if you take a drink, nothing is going to, like, I always feel like nothing is going to come out right. Like if I'm drinking again, I can't do the work that I do. I can't set the example. And I feel the same thing about you. It's like it's bigger than us and we're in it and it's not easy. And especially when you add the word witches, people are very judgmental from that space. Michelle said, "Thank you for sharing and giving us a voice." Thank you.
Yeah. What's wild, Vanessa? I've had this conversation with a couple of folks. I took two things, right? Addiction and witchcraft, and which, like, people ostracize and judge and place all sorts of bad labels on addiction, and ostracize and judge and place all sorts of bad on witches. And I shoved the two.
Two topics.
I know. I had this woman the other day. I was in this big, large group thing. I was taking some kind of training, and she goes, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "Well, I help witches in recovery." And she goes, "That's an interesting niche."
That was a nice way
I was
for
like,
her to put it.
I know, it was very sweet. It was very sweet how she put it. But yeah, I do. I'm I am so humbled and in awe and slightly shocked and just delighted almost every single day. Like, the book has been live now for just over a year. And, and I just released my second book in March, and I said, it sells on Amazon. And I looked at my partner and I said, it is the ninth. I said, I don't know what's going on in the world right now, but I've sold 12 copies since the first of the month now again. Like, I'm just watching and I'm just like, it's just wild to think, right? I literally just decided and made an agreement, a number of years ago. And I said, Spirit, God, tell me what I need to do. Just lead me where I need to go. I'm here, right? I'm not as smart as you. I'm not as smart as you. So please show me the way, and I will follow, and it's been incredible to see where it's led me. Incredible.
It's a beautiful journey, a beautiful
Mhm.
journey. I do want to ask you about the recovery coven. What is a coven for those that don't know what a coven is?
The literal definition is just gathering of witches. That is it. Just a gathering of witches, just a collection of witches. I think a lot of people, when they think of a coven, they do think of more of a formal practitioner of witches. There's even some, like, in that type of space, there is even some, like, ooh, I'll never join a coven because there's so many rules and there's so much power struggle. Um, but literally for us, the recovery coven is more closely tied to a gathering of witches. It's where we go, those individuals that are in a path of recovery that identify as a witch. It is where we gather to share our knowledge, our experience, we do psychic development in it. We do spell crafting where we talk about different ways to engage in magic. There are opportunities for service, right, in it. And so, yeah, that to me is what this recovery coven is. It's witches that are in recovery, and it's a place for us to go to connect and be seen, and to do so in a space that understands trauma, that understands addiction, and that understands the responsibility that we all have to ourselves, but that it's so much more pleasant and helpful and fulfilling when you get to do it with others.
Yeah. Tierra
Yeah.
said, "Ooh, I love that." And I do
Thank you.
too. I think we all need that space where we feel loved, accepted, and not judged, right? You
Mhm.
don't wanna feel judged, you don't wanna hear things because you are already dealing with your own addiction. You don't wanna hear the crap from other people on top of that, right? We don't
Mhm.
care about what you got to say or what you believe, but it's a safe space for you all to come together. And I think it's important for people to know that witches pray, right? And there's a lot of people, so Christians do not want to hear this, but I'm gonna say it. There are a lot of similarities between witches, witchcraft, hoodoo, voodoo, all of it, and the church. Like the
Yeah.
church has rituals. You just don't call it a ritual. The prayers, like there's a lot of similarities, but
Yeah.
respect to each one's faith and how you get to God, but we all get to God different ways. And
Yeah.
I absolutely love that you've created a community for that. And I think it's brilliant. I hope that the world finds out about what you're doing and that every witch has an opportunity to join the Recovery Coven because it's an amazing place that you have created and you created it out of love. You created it based on your own experiences. And so that's why I wanted people to hear about you and I wanted more people to be able to say, "Hey, you a witch, you got an addiction problem. Have you heard of Sunshine?" Like she real cool.
Dr. Vanessa, I have to share this. Just the other day, I belonged to a Facebook group and I saw a post come up that said, I'm struggling with, I don't remember what the addiction was, but I don't really resonate with AA and I don't know, what can I do? Is there anything? And I watched 3 other people mention my work to this person. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. And yeah, it was so unbelievably beautiful. So I know we've got a comment. The easiest way to join anything and see anything I'm doing is visit www.soberwitch.life. That'll take you to everything that we've got going on from yeah, that's the email address. You can email me too. But yeah, that'll take you to everything, to the retreats, to the coven, to the witches circle, to the merchandise, to the podcast, to the radio show. Yeah, you name it. It's all available there.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. That's how you can join and to be able to tell other people about it. And the email, I want to say it for those that are not on the live show, but it's sunshine@soberwitch.life. You can email her, ask her any questions. I think it's important that we have those safe spaces. So if you know somebody that's a witch, identifies as a witch, or don't know where to go, they don't feel like they fit in AA. I love AA. I'm in an all women's group. Shout out to Spiritual Progress in Columbia, South Carolina. I love those ladies. But it works for me, but it doesn't traditionally. I'm not a traditional person. I make AA work for me. I make whatever program I'm in work for me. Like I never had a sponsor. A sponsor wasn't something that I wanted. I want to do it on my own between me and God. And so Michelle said, "Thank you." So I didn't do AA traditionally. I like how you took the 12 steps and used your counselor. I like that you
Mhm.
use prayer and rituals to be able to help you get through sobriety. And that is so big. And there's all different ways that we can tackle this beast. Well, and you're not alone. You are
Yeah.
not alone. And there's individuals that love you and will accept you. So, and the recovery coven is like so dope. I love it. I do. I love it
Thanks.
100%. Is there anything that you want to share before we get out of here?
I think it's important just to reiterate again, I think AA, it was the beginning of my story. Uh, I, just like you, I made it what it needed to be. Um, there are a lot of different pathways to recovery that are out there. Please, if you are struggling with addiction, don't give up. Keep trying. There's literally that's one of the sayings in the 12 steps: just keep trying, right? Just keep trying. Just do that. You are absolutely worthy and deserving of letting go of that beast that is hanging on your back and is keeping you from living the beautiful life that you deserve. Yeah.
100%. I love it. I don't want people to give up, to feel like there's
Mhm.
nobody out there where they don't fit in, because there's always something that's out there for all of us.
Mhm.
So thank you, sunshine.
Yeah,
For
thank you,
those of
Dr.
you
Vanessa.
that, struggle with addiction, um, don't give up. We all been there. A lot of us have been there. People, and I say we all because people got addictions to food, shopping. There's all types of addiction, right? Some of it is meth. All of it is not the hard drugs that we struggle with when it comes to addiction. There's a lot of things that we have addictions to. And so one lady told me she was addicted to coffee and caffeine. Like there was no way she was going to be able to stop coffee. That is an addiction. And so instead of people being judgmental, it's like understanding and looking at yourself. It starts with yourself. If you don't think you got a problem, then you don't have a problem. But with the day that you do, or you have some shame around it, that's like ding, ding, ding. I might have a problem. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, don't feel like you're by yourself and love people who are going through an addiction. You don't have to struggle with their struggle, but you can love them from afar sometimes, or just like, I love you, I accept you, this is who you are, and I hope that you get help. But there's nothing that you really can do. It's up to them to be able to get the help that they need. We just love and support and create that non-judgmental space. And so I ask that you all create that space for others. So thank you so very much, beautiful, for an amazing, amazing interview. If you all need anything, you can always reach out to hushnomore.org. You could reach out to us on social media, all of the social media platforms. And please share our video, share with somebody who you know is struggling with addiction, maybe to give them some ideas. But we appreciate you and we love you. And remember that you have a right to tell it and heal. The next level is up to you. So peace and blessings to you all, and peace and blessings to you, sunshine.